All right, on 7.2, we're doing the same thing that we were doing in 7.1 notes yesterday, but instead of it being the same, each one of these, we're just going to have to go through each one of those individually. So remember on these problems that we always start on the inside and work our way to the outside. So we're going to do that inside part first, and then we're going to move to the outside part. All right, we do need our trig chart today, so I have mine over here. And I have that whole reference sheet with my trig chart and this graph at the bottom. So you're going to need both of those. Let's go ahead and get started on this first one. It says to first find the inverse cosine, of 1/2. So on the trig chart, we have cosine, we have 1/2. That gets us to pi over 3. So the inverse cosine of 1/2 is pi over 3. We don't have to do anything else with that. We just bring down our sine. So now we're looking for sine of pi over 3. So sine of pi over 3 is square root of 3 over 2. And that is my answer. Oops, wrong button. Square root of 3 over 2. Okay, on B, I have the inverse sine, but it's of a negative number. So we're going to go back to the trig chart and find the inverse sine of 1/2. Inverse sine of 1/2 is pi over 6. And then we'll be flipping back and forth a lot. So it's pi over 6. But when you have that negative, and this is sine, we go down to this picture down here. Sine is negative. We do 0 minus. So 0 minus pi over 6 is negative pi over 6. Now bring down that tangent. So tangent of negative pi over 6. So if you think about this one, pi over 6 would be graphed here, negative, which makes the reference angle positive pi over 6. So we're going to find tangent of positive pi over 6 over here. Tangent pi over 6 is square root of 3 over 3. But because this was negative and we graphed it into this quadrant, that's A, S, T, C quadrant, we're in the quadrant for C, but we're finding tangent that makes this negative. All right, we have inverse tangent of square root of 3. So tangent square root of 3 is pi over 3. Now we're going to find secant of pi over 3. So secant of pi over 3 is 2. We don't have to do anything special on that one. Now we have sine of 4 pi over 3. So 4 pi over 3 is not on my trig chart. So if I were to graph 4/3, that would be 1.3. So here's 1.3. If I wanted to take out this 1 from it, I would do 4/3 minus 1. 1 is 3/3, which leaves me with 1/3. So my reference angle is pi over 3. So now I'm going to find sine of pi over 3. I get square root of 3 over 2. But again, A, S, T, that's the T quadrant, and we're finding sine. That makes that negative. So now you're going to bring down the inverse sine of negative square root of 3 over 2. So back to over here. Sine square root of 3 over 2 is pi over 3. Pi over 3. But when inverse sine is negative, we use this. Sine is negative, we do 0 minus. So we get negative pi over 3. All right. Same thing on this one. 7 pi over 6 is not on my trig chart. So 7/6 is 1.16 repeating, so I'm just going to put 1.2. So to graph that, here's 1 and then 0.2. So I'm going to take the 1 out. So 7/6 minus 1. Remember that 1 is 6 over 6, so that will leave you with 1/6. Your reference angle would be pi over 6. So I'm going to go to my trig chart and find sine of pi over 6. Sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. But again, like we were just talking about, that's the t quadrant, and this is sine, makes this negative. We'll change that to blue. Now we're going to find inverse cosine of negative 1/2. So we're going to go back to the trig chart. Cosine 1/2 is pi over 3. Pi over 3. But because this is negative, we have to look here. So here's inverse cosine. When it's negative, we do pi minus the angle. Pi minus. Remember that pi is just 1, so we could write it as 3 over 3 minus 1 over 3 is 2 over 3. Part F, inverse cosine of 1/3. So since we're doing inverse, we should be able to find 1/3 in here, but it's not. So instead, we can't graph that either because it's not radians. So 1/3, remember now, I'm going to make you a note. That was supposed to be a star. Your formulas. Your formulas, sine is y over r, cosine is x over r, tangent is y over x. So since this is cosine, x is 1, r is 3. To find tangent, I need y over x, so I've got to go find y. We do our Pythagorean theorem, so 1 squared plus y squared equals 3 squared. 1 plus y squared equals 9. Subtract 1, I get 8. I'm going to have to take the square root of that, so I'm going to do 4 times 2. Square root of 4 times square root of 2 is square root of 8. The square root of 4 is 2. We leave that other 2. So that's our y. So to find tangent now, y is 2 square root of 2. X is 1. Leaves you with 2 square root of 2. All right, with g, we're doing the same thing. Sine is y over r. So we're going to go find cosine, which is x over r. So I need to find x. So y is square root of 2. Hold up. X squared plus y squared equals r squared. Square root of 2 squared is just 2. 3 squared is 9. Subtract 2, we get 7. So when I take the square root of that, we're just going to leave it as square root of 7. It does not simplify. So over here with cosine, square root of 7 over 3. That does not reduce. That is my answer. H, we have inverse tangent of negative 2. Tangent is y over x, so let's put an x here. So y is negative 2, x is 1. We need to find cosecant, but cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Sine is y over r, so cosecant is r over y. So I'm going to have to go find r. So I have 1 squared plus negative 2 squared equals r squared. So 1 plus 4, which is 5. So r is the square root of 5. So r over here, r is square root of 5. Y we said was negative 2. The only thing I'm going to do is pull that negative up to the top. Negative square root of 5 over 2. All right, for this next section, we're using the calculator. And when we're doing the calculator, we're going to use these formulas up here. It's very similar to how we did, the inverse, not inverse, sine, cosine, tangent, regular in the calculator. Now the inverse is a little bit different. So remember that cosecant goes with sine. So we're actually going to type in the calculator inverse sine, but we're going to do 1 over 7. Okay, let me get my Desmos up. Oh, I already have that one typed in. So the inverse sine of 1 over 7, and we're rounding to 3 decimals, so 0.143. Okay, same thing with cotangent. We're going to do the inverse tangent of 1 over 8.3. And we've got 0.1199, so that would be 0.120. Secant would be cosine, so inverse cosine. Now, this one's a little bit weird. You can write this one two different ways. You can do 1 over negative 4/3 if you want to do it that way, or just do negative 3/4 instead of 1 over. It doesn't matter. It'll give you the same answer. I'll show you. Inverse cosine of 1 over negative 4/3. And then if you did inverse cosine of negative 3/4, it gives you the exact same answer. So I got 2.419. All right, but we got to pause here a second on this problem. Let me use a different color. We got to pause on this problem. If you have to take the inverse cotangent of a negative number, your calculator doesn't know how to do that. Cotangent of negative number, the calculator is going to lie. It will not give you the correct answer. Let me try my best to explain it. It may not make a lot of sense to you, but we're actually going to go ahead and come back to this picture and add on to it real quick. Okay, when I add on to it, I'm going to add our cosecant here, our secant here, and our cotangent here also. All right, but this is the one, these are the two that are going to get us. If you have a negative cotangent, here, if you have a negative cotangent, you would have to go here. If you have a negative tangent, you would have to go here. So since those two are half of a circle away from each other, that doesn't really work out with the math of the inverse tangent. Okay, so whenever you have to type it in your calculator, the inverse tangent doesn't work. So what we're going to have to do is add pi to it to get it from here back to over here. Only add pi. Only if it's negative cotangent. Okay, so we're going to do inverse tangent of 1 over negative 7.2, but then we have to add pi to get it back to where the cotangent should go. So inverse tangent of 1 over negative 7.2, is that the right number? Yeah, plus pi. So I got 3.004. All right, these last ones are similar to that, but it says find the exact value of each without a calculator. We're going to start with the trig chart and see if we can do it from there. So the inverse cotangent of 1, cotangent of 1 is at pi over 4. That's my answer. Whoops. All right, this one's going to give us a little bit more to do because of the negative. So we're going to find the inverse cosecant of, I already forgot what it was, square root of 2, and that's pi over 4. But because it's negative, you're going to have to look here and say, well, cosecant goes on this line, so the negative goes here for 0 minus. 0 minus pi over 4 is negative pi over 4. And last but not least, we have our inverse secant of 2 square root of 3 over 3. So secant 2 square root of 3 over 3 is at pi over 6. But because it's negative, we've got to go look back at our subtraction. So secant is here, so our negative goes here for pi minus. So pi minus pi over 6, remember that's like 6 over 6, so we get 5 pi over 6. All right, that is all of today's notes. So go work on your assignment. Let me know if you need help.